Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Today's event is presented by Friends of Elephants in collaboration with the Wildlife Academy and Gaja Conservation Trust. Friends of Elephants is not an organization but an informal group of passionate people working for the welfare and conservation of elephants and other wildlife through knowledge sharing, art, culture, talks, and discussions. My name is Sibani Medhi. I am currently doing my postgraduate studies in environmental biology and wildlife sciences at Cotton University, Guwahati. I love being close to nature and enjoy exploring its beauty. Apart from science, I also enjoy literature, poetry, and expressing myself through words. Public speaking, debates, and content creation are something I truly enjoy. It gives me great pleasure to be here as your host for today's event. So now let us begin with the first talk of the day. What ethnography can teach us about human-elephant conflict mitigation by Sayan Banerjee. Mr. Sayan Banerjee is an interdisciplinary conservation researcher. He has worked in Northeast India on issues like conservation governance, human-wildlife interactions, and the relationship between development and the environment. His long-term research in Bodoland, Assam, explored how people and wild elephants interact in shared spaces like farms, forests, and tea estates. He uses political ecology and animal ecology to understand these complex interactions. He has published his work in journals and popular media. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shivani, for the introduction, and thank you, Naveen, for hosting this event. Uh, I will, yeah, thank you. I will just share my screen for the time. Just a minute. Can you see my screen? And if I, and can you see it full screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Right. Thank you again. Yeah, perfect. So thank you for being here, all of you. And currently, sorry. Yeah, so what will we will I will talk about is basically what ethnography can teach us about human-elephant conflict mitigation. So basically, this is the photograph that you are seeing on the screen is from Assam, and particularly if I tell you the district, it is Udalguri, which is near the Bhutan foothills. So basically, Assam is a landscape where close to 5,700 elephants live, as well as they live in quite close proximity to humans. And a lot of researchers, a lot of conservation action has been going on for many decades now for uh, conservation of Asian elephants, as well as developing coexistence-based programs and reducing conflict in these areas. So I have been, as part of my PhD, I have been associated with this particular landscape for last 4 years, and I will share some uh, insights from this particular landscape as well as my learning along with the elephants as well as the people in this area. Right. So going further into what ethnography is, what I will try to start with is basically uh, this. Sorry, it's not visible right now. Maybe, yeah, just a minute. Right. So hope this is now visible. Correct. So what we do in many of our work in general, research or conservation action, we do a lot of social surveys. Now, what is surveys? Basically, we go to we do a lot of household based. Go to many households and uh, fill up a questionnaire. Where we have a lot of close-ended questions that which either you either you mark it as a tick or a cross, or you put numbers, or you put some words, or what I'm trying to say is basically in a survey is a kind of a mainstay to understand human-elephant conflict. If you go over to the literature, you will find a lot of most of the literature is based on social surveys, where people have tried to learn what the nature of human-elephant interactions in that particular area. So what we do in a survey, so we do a lot of socioeconomic survey where we want to understand the nature of the society as well as the economic of the area. We'll do a lot of attitude and behavior survey, attitude towards elephants, behavior towards elephants, etc. We do a lot of perception survey, that what do people feel or think about, say, living alongside elephants, or what kind of impacts they feel from the elephants, or what do they think of, like how to govern all these interactions. We do a lot of temporal surveys as well to understand the trends of conflict, or trends of damages, or trend of or some or kind of effectiveness of intervention pre and post, etc. We also do spatial surveys to understand where our interventions are working. So what we get from this survey is basically a lot of numbers, a lot of patterns. We create models, and we cover a larger area in that particular landscape to understand how that pattern is going on. So what we do after surveys, basically from that particular model or some numbers, we identify specific variables that we want to target. We target such variables such as, for example, we want to target certain behaviors of people, maybe, or certain attitudes of people, or some kind of intervention. We target such variables, and we plan interventions accordingly. We do a lot of livelihood or behavior change programs, conflict mitigation programs, targeted education and outreach programs, capacity development, etc., depending on that our survey. After implementing all these programs, we do a lot of monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And again, the loop continues. This is fairly an established practice across conservation paradigms. And but doing this survey and an emphasis on numbers, what do we miss? What we miss is basically, again, just a minute. How do I remove this? Uh, Sorry. So we miss a lot of nuances in this whole process, that how social processes are basically uh, governing this whole uh, nature of interaction between people and elephants, how that process has evolved and how it is affecting that interaction. What kind of social feedback mechanisms are there if people are living alongside elephants, and elephants are living alongside people? Both are social creatures. And what kind of social feedbacks are happening in their own systems as well as in the system which is entangled with each other? We also fail to understand from survey that how different actors involved in the whole system. For example, there are local communities, there are forest department, there are researchers, there are political representatives, there are many kinds of actors involved in the whole system. How they interact with each other to create certain kinds of uh, say it's interaction between people and elephants. We also miss what kind of specificity is there in that particular place. For example, what is happening in Dalguri may not be happening in elsewhere, in maybe in Karnataka or maybe in some other district in Assam. We miss these specificities if we do a kind of a broad coverage of survey, right? Okay. So now what ethnography does is I'm sure you know what ethnography is basically rooted in anthropology and sociology, where we immerse ourselves in that particular place, and we try to understand the culture, or how that whole system was generated and how it functions. So ethnography is based on two particular words, ethnos and graphos, which is like description of a particular culture. Now, ethnography has been used for longest time in anthropology through a particular method called participant observation, where you immerse yourself in the system and you observe with participation with the community. With observation, you basically uh, try to describe the whole thing. Now, slowly with time, alongside participant observation, we interviews are also have been nicely integrated into the whole ethnographic system. And for the current time, in the ethnography, we mix a lot of tools to understand that particular culture, right? So having said that, so in my work, I uh, I was there in that particular area for almost 2 years and basically participated in many kinds of activities where people and elephant interact, or there's only elephants moving around or only people around, and through certain methods and tools, I basically collected the whole data and made meaning out of it, which involved a lot of observation as well as interviews, right? Now, what I will try to tell you is basically what ethnography has given me in terms of understanding the whole human-elephant interaction, which was not available through surveys, right? I have also done a survey, but the ethnographic part is much more insightful and useful for me than the survey, right? Now, ethnographic engagement in to understand human-wildlife interactions is not new. It has been there and it has been used quite some time, for quite some time in the last 20 years, but it's patchy. We have, through ethnographic engagements, we have found that people and wildlife, I mean, negative interactions between people and wildlife can create several kinds of hidden impacts. Uh, which remains uncompensated and unacknowledged. Such impacts might be unequal for many kinds of people, for in with respect to their class, gender, caste, ethnicity, etc. Right? Apart from direct livelihood-based coping strategies, there are a lot of emotional coping strategies that uh, go beyond our understanding from surveys. Uh, so also found that the present day kind interactions between people and wildlife, they emerge through deep historical and social events, such as colonialism as well. So uh, we also understood that place-based knowledge production create certain kinds of practices which is difficult to capture during surveys, but it's always uh, uh, bas- uh, kind of uh, go towards coexistence between that particular animal and uh, and people. So, and lately, what we also found is that ethnography can build bridges uh, across disciplines such as geography, anthropology, ecology, and many kinds. And we also we are trying to develop models where we are doing ethnography of animal individuals and cultures, where we are trying to basically understand animals quite differently from what ecology or ethology uh, is trying to show. So having said that, so let's go back to the field. The field is, as I said, it's in Assam. I'm sure you all know where Assam is, and and this particular district called Udalguri is part of the Boroland area, and it's situated in the Bhutan foothills, and uh, it's a uh, land mosaic of forest, uh, agricultural farms, lot of tea estates, large tea estates, small tea estates, as well as riverine tracts. So basically, what uh, so to understand lives of elephants and people and their interactions between them, I tracked them basically through many kinds of methods where ethnography was the major method, but also employed uh, certain techniques to understand elephant behavior, especially their movement in that area. I spent a lot of time in the archive to understand what was there before. And I'm sure if any one of you has been to archive, I'm sure it has opened your eyes. I employ a bit of GIS as well to understand the landscape changes. Right. So going to uh, Right. So now this particular landscape, as I said, it's a tea estate landscapes. By tea estate, what I mean is basically the British who annexed Assam with India in 1826 found an opportunity in this area that the soil and the climate is basically suitable for a widespread cash crop, which is tea. Uh, and they enclosed a lot of commons area, a lot of forest, and converted them into tea estates. I mean, needless to say that these tea estates all came at the cost of the forests, right? And you know that there is a particular community called the tea tribe or the Adivasi in Assam who were basically uprooted from central and eastern India by the British and replanted basically in that area along with tea to take care of that tea, tea business or tea farming, right? So basically, this particular community is the most marginalized community, if I may say, in Assam currently. Uh, Unfortunately, most of the people of this community, they live around in the tea estate and around villages in the tea estate, which are also majorly frequented by elephants across Assam. It's not a particular case for Udalguri, but it's across Assam. So basically, uh, uh, if we again go back to elephants' lives, elephants were treated by the British as a forest produce. The elephants were captured, translocated, sold off, or put into work to generate income for the empire, right? And you know that when you capture elephants in that now with that number till say for hundreds of years, it is bound to rupture their society, and there is individual and group trauma involved in that whole elephant society. Uh, Now elephants are all basically in Assam, at least uh, most of the elephant are outside forest areas, and tea estate has become one of the key refuge areas for elephants across Assam. So now, elephants are also living a marginalized life where flourishing of their life is basically impeded by such kind of historical changes in that landscape, as well as present kinds of modes of uh, changes. So here we are seeing that two marginalized communities are being forced through history as well as our economic policies in the present times to encounter each other for to generate stressful encounters, right? So through ethnography, we see what found is basically it's a shared life of marginalization where people also feel that no, I mean, it is similar. The elephants are living a similar life to them. There is a sharing. There is a sharing uh, of marginalization, as well as people feel that in order to, overcome such marginalization, uh, a societal kind of rupture or upheaval is necessary to basically make them more mobile, more flourishing in their own life, right? Now, if people feel that there is uh, kind of shared marginalization, there are also a lot of understanding of what conflict and coexistence is. For a survey, many people will go with questionnaire. Even I went with questionnaire that this is okay. This is I will put certain behavior or attitude in conflict or in coexistence, but I could not categorize such behaviors in the long term because the interaction between people and elephants happened over a continuum. It could there the interactions. I mean, it was difficult even to put those interactions as a positive or negative, right? So with and people have their own understanding of what what conflict or coexistence is. Uh, so I have published this paper, as you can see in the right top corner, in a fairly recent paper, Adivasi Tea Tribe Worldviews of Living Close to Wild Asian Elephants. You can go through them, and I have two also book chapters. So if anybody is interested, I can send them. Where I tried to argue that it is a failure of us to just categorize certain behaviors or certain understanding in strict as a strictly conflict or coexistence variable. it happens over a continuum, and we have to treat that interaction as it is. There are a lot of uh, and through this living, elephants as well as humans produce certain kind of knowledge, I mean, of each other. In through that certain kind of knowledge, they live that whole life, and it is very difficult where you put you draw the line on what conflict and coexistence is. I can talk about this slide if anybody wants to know more. Uh, Now, how do actually people and elephants stay alongside each other? So that is a big question, which is very difficult to capture in a survey. So if you spend in that area for longest time, for 1 year, 2 year, and see how actually uh, what kind of behavior uh, or kind of description people use or elephants show through their behaviors, uh, to to make adjustments alongside each other, we will find that it's a lot of sensorial. They create a kind of sensorial geography through particular visual scape, audio scape, touch scape, and sense scape. So all of our kind of sensing organs become active to understand what the elephant is doing or the people are doing. For example, uh, when people they uh, kind of uh, spend the night over a platform to know if the elephants are coming or not. It's nighttime and you cannot see properly, but then your other senses have to be properly attuned to certain kinds of noises made by elephants, or certain kinds of smell or scent that comes from the elephants. On the other hand, elephants also depends upon all these kinds of senses to make sense, to make a kind of meaning that what people are up to. The and with all this information through the senses, people and elephant do a lot of trial and error based adjustments, for kind of temporal or spatial kinds of adjustments, that certain spaces will be used only by humans in during certain times. For example, the in the morning time, the whole area is abuzz with people, and elephants are kind of immobile in a certain section of a tea estate. As soon as sun sets and the night darkens, the villagers are now immobile in their homes, and the elephants are moving around. So if this is the case, so you will always wonder that why only say 100 people or 50 elephants die each year. Every day there should be some kind of death or injury for both elephants and people. But due to this small scale, micro scale adjustments, uh, which has been generated over time through observations as well as sensorial geographies, uh, they create a kind of a sensible geography where the sensibility comes from sheer sheer their desire to survive against each other, that uh, the mutual adaptation happens uh, in order to live a life not of flourishing, but just to live in that whole landscape, that so that the accidental encounters come down, or some kind of adjustments, mental or physical adjustments, has to be there, so that we both elephants can give space to humans, and humans can give space to elephants. All this adaptations are kind of mutually forced on each other, but mutually agreed upon, that okay, fine, uh, that these kinds of adjustments are not not very good for me, but at least it's not hampering my, say, life in that matter. I mean, it's not creating a deadly situation where basically the elephant or the human individual can lose their life, right? Now, if this is the case, where the human elephant interaction goes into various kinds of multidimensional direction, and it can create a lot of complexity which is very difficult to grasp, even even in 1 or 2 years, or through a survey or through any kind of method. So what do we do with this knowledge? Since as I said that our conflict mitigation depends upon a lot of I mean short-term understanding of the whole system. Uh, our current major conflict mitigation uh, tool in Assam is installing solar fences. I'm sure you all know what solar fences are, uh, and uh, and uh, so the model is basically you the villages which are prone to elephant related damages are generally enclosed in a particular solar fence so that elephants can move uh, unhindered alongside the village but cannot enter the village, right? So planning, installation and management of fence is currently the most used conflict mitigation tool. So as you can see on the left photograph, there are red colored enclosed areas uh, which were which were solar fences, which a conservation NGO facilitated, and now the community manages that fence. There is also a yellow kind of a area where community has bought and the fence materials, and now they manage the whole thing. There is also some kind of white uh, clusters you can see if I here or here or here. These are all government owned and managed. Needless to say, all the white fences which are government owned and managed are now useless, which are now not working. Only the red and yellow fences are currently in working condition. So so when you go for such conflict mitigation implementation, what people do is do a lot of meetings in the village and kind of create a consensus that this is one method that that can help you reducing the damage. So let's do it. So now the installation is done, and there is a management regime that the community can take care of that particular fence uh, either through selecting some person in the village who will take care of the whole fence, or whether the community as a whole will take care of the fence, how the financial management will be. So all these things are planned and put into action. Now what happens after you put a fence? Of course, I mean, I'm not criticizing the fence, but the fence is currently the most effective mechanism to reduce damages. But but this particular infrastructure creates a lot of chain reactions in the system, in both human and elephant systems, which are not really captured during or after uh, this installation or during, say, conservation programs, right? We only check whether the fence is working or not, but how this whole infrastructure is basically treated and kind of perceived across the system, and what it creates, which is very interesting. Uh, there are a lot of gender related issues that happens with the fence. For example, in my field site, uh, women have to go to riverine and forested areas to collect firewood, water, as well as fodder, right? And men and So when the comes up, uh, so when the fence comes up, it reduces men's work, uh, which is guarding the crops in the night. So the men do not have to guard the crops in night, which is very good. Uh, and now the fence is termed as successful, but that fence creates a kind of, it doesn't create any change in women's life in that sense, right? That it okay it's it doesn't necessarily change the way women has to access certain dangerous spaces where elephants can also come in the riverside or in the forest or etc., right? So, and secondly, all this planning, installation, and management are generally done by men, where in the meetings only men come, and we don't really know if there are some kind of counter argument or uh, or thinking is there for among women if that fence comes up, right? Now, what we found is that even information about managing that fence, how that fence works, what you need to do with the fence, how to manage that fence, such information is also missing from women's groups, because it is not shared from men's group to women group, right? So a very big part of your village population is now do not know what to do with, I mean, how to manage that fence, right? Also, such places are prone to migration. Migration in the sense where men from the village go to cities and towns to basically work, and which like the most places in India. So when men migrate out, now the women have to take care of the whole thing. They have to know the whole thing. So what we found that the men who were in the fencing committees for in the beginning, a lot of them have moved out. Now there is a knowledge void in the whole system. Now there is no one to teach uh, uh, even the women, right? So this is a kind of a gendered one of the gendered effects of kind of uh, using a fence without understanding the social system. Now, there are multi-ethnic villages where there might be kind of a power imbalance or kind of a not a very good relation between two ethnicities, where one ethnic group might feel that fencing may create is installed for creating certain kinds of trouble for them, which is not exactly, I found this from not exactly from this particular field, but from a different district called Goalpara, where uh, a particular ethnic group uh, used to go to a particular a different place to for work. And now when you put up the fence, and the fence the gate was near this particular ethnic group's hamlet, they have to open and close every day. And so they found it difficult to maintain in that sense, and it created certain kinds of interethnic tension in that particular village, right? Migration that I have talked about. Uh, this particular fence becomes a kind of an infrastructure, development infrastructure, right? It is treated as in a similar category as your roads, hospitals, or whatever development infrastructure is needed in that area, right? So this fence is now treated as a kind of a provision from the government or from some other powerful external actors, and such fences are now being treated as a political product. For example, in my place, this a particular fence was advertised as by a political representative that it was his contribution to for the people, where the actual reality was nothing there. It created a kind of a tension and created a demand for fences from from his office, and by the people basically. So basically, so that particular such things becomes a kind of a uh, infrastructure of a different kind, which it was not intended for, right? Now, such fences require a lot of money in the future for maintaining. Now, generally, what happens is conservation organizations ask people, the villages, to develop mechanism where they will take where the people will collect, say, a very nominal amount of money from each household per month, so that a corpus is made, and from that corpus, it is managed. The fence is managed. Now, a lot of people have started arguing that why should they pay? Since the problem of elephants and other non-compensation of damages was from by the government, why should people pay for the fence? Government should put on the fence. Government should maintain the fence. Now now it is not a unique situation. Since our country is heavily government dependent, and generally the rural areas depend for everything from the government. So here, the relation between the government and the people becomes very important to understand their willingness to participate in the whole conservation program. If there is uh, low willingness to engage with, say, government or to with the state, then it's very difficult to convince people that no, this is only for your betterment. Even though the pay is nominal, I mean, if you do this, uh, uh, I mean, you will get the favor, right? Now, coming to the elephant, so the elephants now has changed their movement around these areas completely. So, unfortunately, these fenced areas are small. So basically, elephants are going to the next village to raid crops. So they're concentrating their crop raiding in other villages, and the other villages are now seeing an increased crop damage as compared to the villages which are fenced now and which are now seeing almost nil crop damage. So the elephants are now understanding what the fences are. They're using their body to understand how the current flows. What should they do to basically, exert their agency to understand, to live in that areas with complete, to a kind of a with a different understanding that okay, so we should develop certain kinds of movement or refuge areas according to the fence now, right? So here, ultimately, when these fences were put up, people who were very close to elephants as well, I mean, they're not inconsiderate of elephants like in many other places. They want the elephants there. They ask that now we are safe, which is it's not a problem for us now. We are now very safe. So what? But you should also do something for the elephants. Uh, this I mean, elephants will not get anything to eat here, but they will go somewhere. This is not done for the elephant. The fencing ultimately will hamper elephant's life. So there is a kind of understanding of multi-species justice among people that if justice has to be served in terms of uh, to avert, to kind of to make people and elephants' lives easier, it has to be for both of them, not only for humans, right? So basically, what I'm trying to say is conservation happens, which is very rooted in the rural life. How the rural life is functioning, the conservation will function. So connecting the whole thing, so basically it's a lot of points that I have given. What I understood from ethnography is that certain kinds of politics across times create certain kinds of behavior of elephants and people, as well as behavioral interactions. And on the other hand, the behavioral interactions or particular behaviors of particular elephants and people create certain kinds of politics. So both of them feed into each other. You cannot understand one without the other. So we through this we get a lot of multiple dimensions of human-elephant interaction. But what I wanted to ask that can conflict mitigation be transformed from beyond the techno-managerial options? That okay, we go beyond on thinking only about fences. So some kind of thinking, I don't have the answer, but I want to provoke certain kinds of recommendations for example. But so so first of all, I think we should always acknowledge that conflict mitigation and conservation is a socio-political process where you have to understand how the whole system is functioning across both people and elephants, and how these systems are interacting with each other, right? So there are a lot of emotional ecology or perception of conflict that are building, which is completely different from actual damage, right? So, and there are a lot of trauma and mental health problems are involved among people. So, could counseling or psychotherapy be a valued intervention? So, we are not thinking about fences now, but we think about, say, individual or group counseling as a method that which can reduce the perception of conflict, that or the trauma from the conflict. And can psychotherapy be a conservation intervention? As I said, there are a lot of place-based practices which are actually feeding into coexistence, which is kind of mutual adaptation, mutual adjustments. We should acknowledge and celebrate as well as strengthen that particular practices in that particular area, and should not straitjacket or deploy them elsewhere, right? Each place has their own specificity. We should understand each place and strengthen those practices accordingly in that particular place. As I said, the whole system, uh, uh, I mean, Bodoland particularly has evolved from a social conflict only 2 decades ago, and we saw that when the Boland conflict was at its peak, the heaviest deforestation occurred, and the human-elephant conflict reached its peak. So, can peace building or strengthening inter-community relation be a conflict mitigation strategy? Can improving state relation between state and community be a strategy as well? Now, I mean, we do a lot of outreach activity to elephant adjacent rural people, but are we doing enough outreach or awareness generation which can be targeted towards political representatives or powerful actors, so that I mean, we can say that no, I mean, more than people who are already living alongside elephants with certain adjustments and more coexistence, you should, I mean, the political representatives should learn from them that no, this can be done. So our own outreach awareness should be more targeted towards such people, uh, and maybe less towards rural populace, right? Right. With all these kinds of suggestions, questions, etc., I acknowledge many people. So mostly the people and elephant members from my field side, my consultants in the field, Country Policy Division, my institute NIAS, funders Rafford, Inlax, and Idea Wild, as well as this particular group, Friends of Elephants. Thank you very much. I would stop sharing now. And I would like to say a few things that this is only a rural area. Assam is experiencing urbanization at some scale right now. So elephants are also coming into rural, urban, or peri-urban or urban areas, which are creating lots of different dynamics altogether. So probably in the next session, we will talk about that. Yeah.
Thank you for your valuable insights, sir. Now we move on to a conservation titled Human-Elephant Relations at the Rural to Urban Transition Zones of Assam, featuring Ms. Paloma Bhattacharjee in conversation with Mr. Sayan Banerjee. Ms. Paloma Bhattacharjee is a researcher who studies human and elephant interactions in Northeast India. She completed her master's in social anthropology from Simon Fraser University, Canada. Her research focuses on how elephants move between forests and villages and how this affects people's sense of home and place. She has worked at the National Museum Institute, New Delhi, and IIT Guwahati. She also holds degrees in history from the University of Delhi. Over to you, Ms. Paloma Bhattacharjee.
Right. I mean, before Paloma starts, I just want to inform the group that Paloma is a wonderful researcher and did a wonderful thesis in the outskirts of Guwahati city, which is the biggest city in the North region, and she has a lot of great insights from the place, which is rural, but it's fastly urbanizing as well. Yeah, Paloma. Yeah.
Hi. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, completely.
Okay, hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. So I'll be speaking about this region on the southwest of Kamrup district in Assam. We know that the capital city of Guwahati has been, expanding at a rapid scale, particularly in the late 20th century onwards, after the shift of, the capital from Shillong to Dispur. So now the southwestern part of the city is surrounded by a cluster of foothill villages, which are located at the border of Assam and Meghalaya. And I conducted my master's research in one such village called Moirapur. And I mostly speak from my experience of, being there. So just to give you a sense of the larger landscape. So these, are foothill villages which are located along adjacent patches of reserve forest. So Moirapur is located along the Jarakhal Reserve Forest, which is interconnected with the Kawa Singh forests, the Rani, the Gorbhanga forests, which are further connected to, community managed forests in Meghalaya. Now, if you move further north from this particular village on southwestern part of Assam, there's a stretch of agrarian land which connects to peri-urban and sort of the peri-urban areas, which is near the town of Mirza. So Mirza is a very important town in this region. So, and within Mirza, which is a densely packed urbanizing center with a lot of peri-urban areas around it, is also an island of reserve forest called the Maliata Forest. And if one looks at further southwest from all these areas, there are also several other patches of forests, leading up to the Chandubi Lake, which is the Matiakhar forest, Borduar forest, which is also connected to Meghalaya. So, I mean, for an unversed person, it's a lot of names of places. But what I'm just trying to emphasize is that, there is this rapidly growing city, and the city is surrounded by rural and peri-urban areas. And these areas have historically also served as some kind of hinterland for the city building. And all of this exists within a larger elephant landscape, which over a period of time, has been shrunk to a network of interconnected or now disconnected forest patches. So just coming back to Moirapur, where, I conducted my study. So I went there to look at agrarian communities' relationship with elephants, and I did not want to study urbanization, nor did I exactly end up doing. But as I sort of progressed into my fieldwork, it became evident that the village is not an isolated island, and many of the local processes that was set in motion there were intertwined with the urbanization that was happening all around it, or also was paving into the rural landscape. So I just want to point out that also it's not like a linear cause and effect of like urbanization causing habitat degradation, leading to increasing elephant pressure in certain pockets. But what leads to what is sort of non-linear and a complicated network of processes, and also unpredictable in a way. So by urban expansion, what I particularly mean is, of course, infrastructure building, largely concretization, the construction of the national highway, particularly National Highway 37, 31, the construction of the airport, Guwahati airport, the decline in agriculture, the construction of railway lines, presence of factories, industries, a large amount of pollution from the city seeping into this region, and the rise of townships owing to the excessive growth in population. If you look at the master plan of Guwahati, for instance, you see that much of these forest regions are envisaged as being, satellite townships are sort of imagined in many of these regions, which are part of the larger elephant landscape. So, and also, the city, and much of this expansion is possible because historically the city, these parts around the Guwahati city was seen as wastelands. And they also, like I said, served as some kind of hinterland for city building. Much of the forests were turned into timber plantation. The timber was used for railway construction and city building. And in the present time, the forests are scarred with stone quarries, which sort of help in building of urban infrastructure, and are also lined with number of stone crushers. So and they pose a huge impediment for the entire ecosystem and elephant movement. So these are the largest set of processes which I refer to when I say urbanization and expansion of the Guwahati city, right? So to sort of sketch the image of this transition or a landscape in a flux or transition somehow tangibly, I'll just tell you how I arrived at my particular field site. So before I went to Moirapur, I was in this village called Sokordew, which is very close to Guwahati, to meet someone to discuss about where I should do my fieldwork, to understand how an agrarian community lives with elephant in this landscape. So I eventually realized that Sokordew was not a place to do that, because farmlands have virtually disappeared from there. The places Sokordew and a larger number of villages closer to the city are more or less extensions of the city now. Of course, the deeper bill in Sokordew continues to be an important anchor for elephants in this larger landscape, from where large part of wetlands and swamplands have disappeared now. But nonetheless, elephant presence in Diporbil also has declined, which another anthropologist who has worked in this region called Paul Kale has noted. So I realized that I have to move further, southwest to do a study of an agrarian community's interaction with elephants. So when I moved a little further, I was in this other village called Panisanda. But even there, agriculture was on the decline, and although elephant presence was intense a couple of years ago, it was on the decline. Most people were again giving up agriculture. The landscape is dotted by an amusement park a little far away, dhabas and resorts coming up for for recreation of city dwellers, basically. Although elephants move through the villages, they don't pose as significant a problem as they did a couple of years ago. So, through this way, I finally went further southwest and ended up in Moirapur. And I realized that like elephants pose a significant problem in those villages now. And, there's a lot of conflict amongst farmers and elephants. So, elephants' presence in this region, in these Moirapur and the villages, which are, almost like 30 kilometers away from the city when you go southwest, elephants were not a significant problem even in 1960s and 70s. People farmed in this region without, having to drive away elephants. But it's only in the last 30, 40 years that elephants have become a source of contention. And, when I asked them why, their answers were many, uh, 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 which included, that elephants have become less scared of people, particularly after the ban of elephant hunting. Erstwhile elephant habitats have declined. Forests are not as favorable for them. Elephants, of course, as opposed to many other kind of vegetation. And they, of course, attributed it to the decline of agrarian activities in the villages that was like a buffer between them and the city. So Morapur, in a way, became an important locus for me to think about how changes in a rural environment occur within a larger landscape that is witnessing rampant urban development. And this link, there's a link between these wide-ranging processes, of city building over time, a shrinkage in agrarian landscape, and a shift in how elephant dwell across this particular region at large. So, basically, as pressure of elephant intensified in the villages closer to the city, and people sort of giving up farming, and urban prospect seemed much more lucrative to them. And because it was not as profitable to farm, as people in those villages like Sokordio gave up for away. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is that elephants, of course, were impacted by urbanization, but they were also shaping urbanization in a way in this larger area, because as city building, agrarian expansion, and colonial forestry may have gradually impacted the shrinkage of elephant habitat over time, in the contemporary context, the fact that elephants also caused people to give up farming in some region played a significant role to the rise of human-elephant conflicts in other regions, and which had an immense impact on the lives of people in Moirapur, which was what I basically studied. But there's something else that I would also want to point at, that while on the one hand we see the incursion of urbanization in these rural landscape, which is connected to elephants' actions and practices, there is also something interesting that is happening in this larger landscape, which is that elephants are using small fragmentary patches of forest to navigate areas far beyond these villages towards, the urban spaces around the town of Mirza. And so what is happening is that the elephants have been moving further north over many years now. But usually a herd was moving further north, raiding on the crops in these villages and returning back to the Jarakhal Reserve Forest. But what has been happening in the last around 4 years is that a group of bull elephants sort of stayed back in the Maliata forest inside the town of Mirza. and they did not return back to Jarakhal as they had been doing until then. And they slowly started I don't know if raiding is an appropriate word, but let's say exploring the region around the Maliata Reserve, which was basically towns or peri-urban areas, which was concrete establishments, some amount of farmlands. And these are people who are not really used to seeing elephants. These are also these may have been, and these have, of course, been elephant habitats in the past, in the longer history, but in the last many decades, this has not happened. So, and the elephants have not only been there in the Maliata Forest Reserve, but surrounding the Maliata Forest Reserve are also uh, patches of unreserved forests. So in the last 3-4 years, these elephants moved to those patches and, seek sort of shelter or refuge. And they have been gradually increasing the area which they explore, which they feed on, and which is not necessarily farmlands, but this is people's backyards, trees growing along the road in people's homes. And it is only recently that I learned that after about 2 or 3 of those bull elephants died, this group had been sent back with the help of the forest department to the Jarakhal forest. But just yesterday I spoke to someone in Rani, and then they said that the elephants are again, returning to Mirza. So this is also a unique situation that has been happening in this landscape where, on one hand, urbanization is making inroads, raising important questions about the future of agriculture and elephants in these regions. On the other hand, the elephants are doing something unprecedented, which is exploring the urban landscapes around these areas. So this is broadly the sketch of, what is happening there. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Paloma. So I would request everyone to just Google elephants in Mirza, so we will understand what she's trying to say. So this interesting group of 6 or 5 male elephants, which are not really adult till date, but they are moving across that particular town area and living their life. So, and we are also seeing that they're preferring that place. I mean, whenever they're driven back towards, say, a bigger, good forest area, they immediately go out and again come back towards Mirza in this particular town. So, which is interesting. And similar kind of observation, you will just Google it and you will find across across big towns and cities, including different other towns like Tejpur in Assam, but also the towns of Jhargram or Shiliguri in West Bengal, Rishikesh, Haridwar in North India, towns and cities, including Bangalore in southern India. So we are getting a generation of urban elephants slowly. So which is in itself is a big question that are coming up. So how do urbanization is creating a new kinds of human-elephant interaction, and on the other hand, as Paloma said, how human-elephant interaction over longer time is creating a certain kinds of urbanization in that in the area. So, so I'm just curious that as you said, Paloma, that it's concretization and like the buildings coming up, malls coming up, whatever. But is urbanization is also a kind of uh, a situation where people lose a sense of giving space to other. And have you kind of observed that thing? Because in my area, at least, slowly what I am seeing is kind of with more cash cropping and more kind of people going out, migrating outside to towns and cities. They're kind of in a dual situation where they like the elephant and they want the elephant to stay there, but also creating questions in their mind that till how long? I mean, should elephants be there at all? So are you seeing that kind of alienation in people's mind?
Yeah, thank you, Zan, for the question. And as you rightly said, urbanization is not just a material incursion. Uh, uh, and also, like what I mentioned, that elephants play a role in the experience of urbanization of people in the rural area that I was in, right? So what you said about alienation is really true, because as farming in the presence of elephants, is an extremely tiring, exhaustive, risky, and at the same time non-profitable experience, because mostly the farmers that I was working with were subsistence farmers. They were farming at a much smaller scale, and also a large number of them were sharecroppers. So they were not farming in their own lands. They were farming in the lands of absentee landlords. And a portion of the produce had to be given to the landlords, irrespective of the damages that the elephants cause. So, which means farming was being a pointless uh, uh, activity. It came with a lot of grief and questioning, about, like you said. So, in this context, urban aspirations seem much more lucrative. But and especially I noticed it amongst a lot of younger people living in the village. They didn't want to continue being farmers like their parents. In fact, a lot of them were not even interested to go and look at the elephants when they came out in the farmlands. Uh, so which definitely spoke of some kind of aspiration much aligned to, opportunities offered by urban spaces, be it the service sector or entrepreneurial opportunities. And also, something I heard a lot was, the living in a space shared with elephants was also seen as a sign of backwardness. Hati jaga, like people say, we live in elephants places to indicate that we live in places which is, left behind in terms of, the march of progress. So they wanted that sort of spoke of some kind of an aspiration or some kind of a hierarchy as it was in prevalent amongst uh, people. So, but like as elephants' presence was has been growing. I mean, this is of course like I spoke of this alienation which people felt, which was very true, but the rise of elephants' presence in these urban spaces like Mirza in the last few years also brought in an interesting dynamic, like when you think of urban spaces, you think of urban as being separated from nature, right? Or something where you create these distinct boundaries of nature culture. But the presence of wild elephants in urban spaces sort of disbalance that kind of spatial hierarchy in some way, and which created a lot of conversation around, what is the future of these kind of urban spaces? Will elephants continue to adapt to these spaces, or, which will the elephant population decline and stuff. So yeah, so these were like two trends which I observed in terms of, how people were experiencing urbanization. There was greater sense of wanting to engage in urban activities, especially people who own land in the region. Many of them these are lands in a tribal belt, so you buying and selling, there are a lot of restrictions around it, but many people have started leasing out land to city dwellers who are building nurseries. There's a school coming up in the middle of Moirapur. There are resorts, which is an upcoming industry in those regions. So, yeah. So all of these largely constitute the experience of urbanization there.
Right. So yes, as we said that urbanization, we will have urban elephants soon, and with urban food choices, urban life choices, urban refuge choices, right? So probably we'll stop here, Paloma, and we'll
Yeah.
take questions now. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
basically we will go towards Q&A, Arjun. Yeah.
All right, great. Should we jump into questions? Thanks, Dan and Paloma. That was very interesting. Shivani, is there anything else we need to do before that?
Yes, sir. I wanted to introduce you.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yes, please, yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay, so now finally we have a Q&A session moderated by Mr. Arjun Kamdar. So he is a conservation scientist who uses both science and social research to find ways for humans and elephants to share space peacefully. He has worked on many projects in Assam and he is currently doing his MPhil at the University of Cambridge. His research uses behavioral science to understand how people make decisions in complex environmental systems. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thanks so much, Subhani, and thanks, and Paloma. That was very interesting, and I think it's a really large field of work that's definitely going to be more and more relevant as time goes on. There are already a few questions in the chat box, so maybe I'll just combine them so that we can answer them. Most of them are directed to Sayan. The first one is more technical. I think so. Mohsin asked whether the solar fencing has been used for HEC and negative interactions for a long time. What are the impacts on other non-target species? You, of course, have already spoken about its implications for humans, but what about wildlife?
Right. So basically, so in Assam, there are, if I say crudely, there are two types of fences where there is a single wire fence. There is only a single wire which is kept at around 5 to 6 feet height, which is only targeted towards elephants. And you believe it or not, these kinds of fences are more effective than kind of 5 or 6 strand fences, which with concrete pillars or iron pillars. So basically, uh, these fences do not impede movement of smaller animals, as I can vouch that a lot of places where such single wire fences have been put up, it has not been effective towards wild boar, for example. So wild boar continues to damage crops. But where 5 or 6 strand fences have been used, yeah, so basically they have been able to withstand smaller mammals like wild boars. But primates, again, no use. Uh, and currently the model is not to put fences around the across the forest boundary, but more around a village, enclosing the village. Or if you have to put up around the boundary should be a hard boundary between the village and the forest, so that the and for example, the Manas, southern part of Manas and Raimona has a kind of boundary fence, but other places have like village fences. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Han. I think the question was also more on probably the ecological implications of fences on non-target fauna, but I think you've already kind of covered that
Right. I mean,
with.
these are like small fences. So these are do not create a lot of problems for movement for animals as such. But if you put a kind of boundary fence across forest and village, they might create some problem. But as I said, most of these fences are for elephants and not smaller animals. So they come through. Otherwise, if we have almost stopped now creating fences which impede movement by animals. It's only we are enclosing places, not enclosing their movement.
Fantastic. Thanks. There are another three questions. I'll just read them out together. So the first one was by Rudra, who wants to know how you convert or whether you convert qualitative data from questionnaire surveys into quantitative data, and whether there are any tools you use for that. And the second part is whether you've kind of come across any instances where the community just does not want to be involved in any conversation with regard to
Right,
any particular questions.
right, right.
And yeah, maybe you could get this and then we'll go to Ranjit's.
Right, right. So basically, no, I did not uh, convert my qualitative data from quantitative survey. So it's a completely different thing that I did. So basically, qualitative is different, quantitative is different. So quantitative I did only through a survey, which has, as I said, lot of very close-ended questions, and I did it mostly for, again, understanding the nature of house damages in that area, and how people felt about certain things. But what I did is I did not go with the questionnaire in the first day itself. I spent a lot of time in the field to build relations of trust and reciprocity along with the community to understand what is going on. And given, I mean, if you are in a conservation organization, then you do not have time. But as a PhD student, I had time. So I had time to basically understand the whole thing uh, initially, and then slowly through ethnography, I understood how people and elephant basically interact with each other to what extent, to what kind of things are coming up. And then after a lot of time, I then designed the survey accordingly. And the survey questions were, I mean, designed from the ethnographic insights. And it's not a random question that I picked up from any other kind of other literature. So those questions were very rooted in the ethnographic insight. So that's why I designed. So basically, there is no interconversion between qualitative and quantitative data. So I do not use that any kind of tools. So basically, I'm a bit old-fashioned in the sense of analyzing qualitative data as well. So I listen and I transcribe, and then I do a lot of manual coding and just go through that whole field notes and transcriptions uh, many times to understand what is happening. With quantitative data, I did basic statistics and stuff. So not much. Yeah. And yes, come to second question
Fantastic.
is as come to second question is as I said, you have to build relations. Otherwise, you cannot do anything. It's the crux of the whole issue. I mean, conservation is a social endeavor. It's a social responsibility if you take in that way. So first, you should build relation, be accountable, be transparent with people that what you want to do, and this is what you are basically trying to achieve with people in basically in confidence. Then you do your work. I mean, if you don't have time, then it's a different issue. But if you have time, then first build your relations, then you do the work. And I think in that community will open up. There is not a point, and you choose your sides or politics accordingly, right? I mean, you do not take a hardcore stance to anything in that sense.
Great. One more question, which is, Shan, you mentioned the British use of elephants. So,
Right.
how does the community benefit from the elephants? Not only from this extractive use, but also from the ideas of expansion of tourism, livelihoods, etc. And do you see that in the area that you're working in from Ranji?
Right. So British used the elephants for their own purpose. There was no community aspect of the whole thing. I mean, there might be some trickle-down benefits which have gone to communities, but in terms of infrastructure development or timber profit, etc. But otherwise, British were not keen to share profits. I mean, with communities. So after I mean, in the post-colonial times, in the late 70s, 80s, elephant capture was stopped, and now there is no elephant capture as such. If it is only if you capture some problem elephant, then you can train that to be a forest department elephant, not otherwise. So now currently, elephant-related benefits, uh, if I say only from material things, so it's only probably around few protected areas like Kaziranga Manas, where there is some bit of elephant back tourism, or there is an expansion of tourism, as you mentioned. Uh, where people come to see elephants and they pay money, and again the profit trickles down to the community. Livelihood wise, it's very difficult to say. I mean, it's as we mentioned already, that people are living agriculture in many places, or changing their agriculture from paddy farming to, say, small tea or some American nut, or because elephants were disturbing their crops. Having said that, the benefit may be in more non-tangible sense, because even though people have a lot of costs alongside elephants, but generally in Assam, people are positive and feel that elephants should be in their backyard to some extent. And even the people who drive away elephants every night, they have to be awake every night. sometimes they feel very disturbed when the elephants are not around. People have talked to me that why the elephants are not coming? We are not feeling happy. When the elephants are here, we feel happy, we feel energetic in this area. So these are non-tangible things. I mean, these are benefits where you get your mundane rural life gets more entertaining when the elephants are around. Elephant watching is the biggest entertainment in the whole landscape. So every evening you will get hundreds of people coming just to see elephants for 2 hours and do nothing. So yeah,
Fantastic, thanks. And I think that goes to the thing that we've also often spoken about with Rana, the cultural ecosystem services argument. So great.
right.
That's all from the questions here, but I have one more, maybe very briefly, if Shan and Paloma both want to kind of take this up, which is both of you have kind of today presented a rather different way of looking at human elephant interactions, using these different tools and which really have a lot of power and potential in terms of understanding the lived experiences of people, etc. And obviously are also of relevance, especially as you've mentioned, Sayan, in the past few minutes. So I wonder if you could speculate or just think about how do you think we could get a greater uptake of these tools in the mainstream conservation movement, um, from your own experiences.
Right. Paloma, do you want to go first?
Hi, yeah. Thank you for the question, Arjun. So as I understand your question, it's about how these insights could, shape the conservation movement in the future, right?
No, not quite actually. Sorry, I just want to say that how do you think we could get a greater uptake of these methods into the conservation movement?
Okay. Um, um, I mean, I do think ethnography is a very important tool, to think about because conservation now is highly dependent on the community, and community-driven conservation is what has some scope of long-term benefits. So, in terms of I think ethnographic insights uh, of how a particular communities understand elephants, or how local processes connect to larger global processes, uh, can really inform conservation initiatives in the future. Yeah.
Right. So basically, if so what I would like conservation organizations to not shy away from such qualitative stuff. I mean, they feel that this is not oriented towards their timeline. For example, conservation happens through a lot of what I call is a project, where projects are designed for a time, for a deadline, for a particular deliverable and time bound, and uh, so have to follow some standard, etc. Where you do not have the time or luxury of time to build such to provide such time to understand the system, where you go with formula and you get a solution. So basically, funders and conservation organizations should think that no, this we are just reinventing the wheel basically, that we are doing this. They should be opening up for more such kind of ethnographic uh, insights, where they should hire ethnographers that understand the system and tell us what where we can do what we can do. Or uh, the ethnographer might not have to see the system or the rural area. They might all there is something called organizational ethnography as well, where how the organization is working in the field, or how it is basically creating a certain conservation system. It is studied by ethnographers, and which is now being used across, I mean, in bigger organizations across world. It is not happening in India, but across many other countries, people, I mean, more organizations are taking up ethnographers to understand what is the long term or kind of uh, intervention which can create different innovations basically. As I mentioned about counseling as a possible intervention. I mean, a lot of people think about that. Okay, yes. I mean, since mental health is such a big issue in living alongside elephants, why can't we take up help from say counselors or psychotherapists as a possible uh, intervention? I think now people are opening up with all this, but long way to go. But at least not shying away from this whole issue is the first thing.
Fantastic. Thank you. Over to you, Naveen.
Since we just have a little bit of more time, can I just throw in, throw in a few questions? I think we
Yeah, yeah.
have, the reason I'm pitching in is because I think today's topic and a lot of points that have come up is, a lot of relevant points, right? Which in the normal course of things doesn't come up in a conservation discussion because conservation discussion is, more of a project and collecting data and trying to analyze data and finally trying to come up with some kind of conclusion that you know depending on what topic you're working on, right? But today we have talked about many aspects, like say for example urbanization, right? And we're talking about elephants reaching the cities, right? So my general question, since we have a young panel here, right, Sayan, Paloma, and Arjun, so should we kind of rethink how we should do conservation? I mean, is it that traditional way of conservation? Is it even working? Because okay, just my background, I've been working on elephants for the past 10 years, and I've been involved in a lot of short-term and long-term projects, right? Um so I would just like to know from everybody, I mean, the three panelists here, and also, I like this last slide of Science presentation, right? I mean, he has tried to come up with, certain, like how he said, out of the box points, right? I mean, so in those lines, or even if you have an individual, opinion or observation about, the traditional way of going to a landscape, collecting data, you know, uh, yeah, elephant data, elephant behavioral data, going to the people, collecting whatever socio-economic data, right? And finally, what is coming out of it? I mean, in terms of either benefiting the landscape as a whole, I will say, right? It includes elephants, it includes stakeholders, it includes people, right? So, any thoughts, any, uh, or maybe the current process is working. I mean, I'm not sure. So, any ideas, guys? Any thoughts?
Right. Arjun, you want to go ahead?
Uh, no, please go ahead, Sam. I'll go next.
Okay. So difficult to say. I mean, you again, the question itself, I'm not again criticizing you, but you think about your question that again, putting that whole thing into a binary, either working or not working, yes or no. Again, in some places, things work. The current conservation actions do work, but they also create chain of events which we choose not to see, or even if we see, we do not choose to take action on them. As I said that you put a fence is good. I said that putting a fence now probably is the best solution in short term for which is now uh, showing some kind of result. We have tried with many other kinds of systems, beehive, etc., etc. But solar fences, low cost solar fences are working. It's working, but they're also creating certain kinds of phenomena, I mean, tweak in the human system and elephant system. So I'm just saying, also see those things. If you do not uh, see those things, then you will be probably fail to uh, create, I mean, innovate in a appropriate way. Also, the major aspect which I think is missing from many conservation organizations is you do not take social scientists into your organizations as a credible member of the organization. I can see a lot of vacancies come up which ask for social science graduates to come into the organization, but mostly they are treated as a livelihood specialist or some or people management, communication. all these things. So no, I mean, they are also well capable of understanding systems. I mean, human systems and natural systems. So now is the point where biologists and social scientists, or I'm saying natural scientists and social scientists, should create partnership and to understand systems, to see what is happening, and not go into binaries of what if it is working or not. It might work, it might not work, but it also creates certain kinds of things, uh, which might in the long term may hamper you or may benefit. So I think in this way, being kind of adaptive dynamics in a situation, I think that in that way it will probably work better. But it is difficult to pinpoint if it is working. It's a yes or no question basically. Yeah.
Thanks, Shan. Paloma, would you like to go ahead? Or...
You carry on. I'll go after you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Shan. I think, and Naveen, for that question, I think I'll just keep it brief. I know we have a short time left, but I think there are, to very quickly answer, I think that there is definitely a need for both kind of, uh, this wide spectrum of ways of looking at the same question, because as Shan just said, that there is seriously a critical role of psychologists, of mental health practitioners in the space. There is, of course, a role of natural scientists, let's say to understand why questions of elephant ecology, elephant movement, etc. There is, of course, a role of behavioral scientists and social scientists, and etc. Because they all, I guess, complement each other, and the sum of all of these is has an emergent property which is greater than the sum of its parts. So that's one aspect. But the second aspect I would want to just kind of think of is, what are we really trying to optimize for? So what is the goal of conservation, right? I mean, if you look at it from a very conventional ecology question or conventional conservation biology question, it's about the utilitarian use of nature, in the sense of, oh, why do we need elephants? Because they provide ecosystem services. Well, but 70% of at least 70% of the range of these elephants that we've spoken about today in the Northeast, close to that in these aspects, is outside protected areas, in human habitation, in tea plantations, where they arguably provide few ecological ecosystem services, maybe cultural, but ecologically few. So what kind of argument do we use there? Or, and even if we, let's say, look at, just the elephants aspect, what are we really trying to maximize? Their population numbers or the quality of life? And again, that's another whole world of questions, right? And it depends on how we do this, and I don't have answers for that, of course, but I feel that just asking these different questions and using these different lenses can help us understand both the questions and the answers. So I think there are two parts of this, right? Asking the right questions and answering those questions rightly. So I think both of these aspects, and the more widespread it is, the better it is. And what I really like about this, and that if I were to kind of have a magic wand way of looking at this field of elephant conservation, I would say that there should be a lot more disagreements, because that's a sign of clearly having different views of looking at the same things. I don't want it all to kind of come together. I think there is need for that. Paloma.
Yeah, I will. I mean, my answer will be a little repetitive of what the others have said. But, I really liked it when Sayan said that conservation organizations could hire ethnographers, because there are several things which can come about through some kind of, alliance of social sciences and conservation, right? For instance, it's one thing to look at events of human-elephant conflict, for instance, but it is also equally important to not just focus on the events, focus on conflict per se, but to see the larger social and historical and economic processes within which they occur, right? For instance, it makes much more, it is much more insightful to understand, to situate, say, for instance, the behavior of certain elephants in a certain place, within a larger history of how human-elephant relationships have unfolded there. Or, for instance, understand how a rise in elephant human conflict, say, is somewhere very far away from Guwahati, is also interconnected to, like, say, processes of, is aspirations of city dwellers quite far away. So, it's really important to situate fixes or solutions within a larger context of why these certain processes are happening. An ethnographer could also help conservation organizations to work against biases about communities, and at the same time, social science disciplines can also bring about a critical gaze on how conservation occurs, right? Like Arjun pointed, like, what are the aspirations of conservation? What is conservation aimed towards? So to constantly ask these kind of critical questions, it is really useful to have a social science perspective. And I come from a social science background, and I know very little or as good as nothing about conservation, which again is some sort of an impediment for me. So for me to, understand how a certain society lives next to a mammal like elephant, it is really important for me to train myself a bit about conservation sciences too. So, some kind of blurring of boundaries across these disciplines and working across, like it has been pointed out so much now, is, I guess, the way forward.
Thank you, Sayan, Paloma, and Arjun. If I think there are, I don't think there are any more questions, right? So, shall we end the event? Anything else anybody has to say? Nothing. Cool. Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Sayan, Paloma, and Arjun. Thank you for your time. And this recording would, I hope, it'll be available by next week on the YouTube channel. So thank you once again, everybody, for joining in. And we will again meet next month, the different topic and different event. So thank you once again.
Thank
I'm
you,
going to
thank you,
end the
Naveen,
event.
and thank you, the
Thank you.
audience.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thanks.